No way.
I need you frightened. I need you hopeless.
Welcome back to the chaos. This is the Reflections of Horror podcast in 4K this week. Hopefully, assuming I can figure this out. But anyway, we are a horror movie podcast for the girls, gays, and the non-binary baes. I'm Lisa.
And I'm Kale, and this is the Blink Twice episode. Before we get started, before we even say anything, big old trigger warning. This film has graphic depictions of sexual assault, so if that is a no-go for you, feel free to skip this episode, and we will see you back next time. Totally cool.
Yeah,
we get it.
Absolutely. Very good disclaimer.
Also, if you need support, reach out to your local sexual assault support services. They are great, and they can give you support if you need it.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. On this topic, I will say it was interesting for me because part of this movie for me is I was really impressed with the trailer and the marketing of it, because in my opinion, it did not give this away, but then it bodes the question of, and again, the moment you sit down and turn this on, it opens with a trigger warning from Amazon MGM Studios, which I don't think I've ever witnessed in a horror movie.
Nope. I don't think I have either.
Yeah, so kudos to them. But again, it's like, so like when it hit theaters, I saw some people, like if you go to a theater, you could be paying $10, $15, it could be a $35 trip if you're going with friends and buying food and whatnot. Yeah. And it's like, if you sit down and you see that trigger warning and then you're going, should I just leave? Yeah. So, I mean, what do you think? It's like, I like the marketing that they didn't give it away, but it's also a very touchy subject. Would have been better off to give it away a little bit.
Yeah, I was thinking about that on my drive over here, actually, because I was like, well, realistically, it's, they didn't give it away in the trailer, right? It was kind of set up to be something very, like, not very different, but something different. And then I was thinking, I was like, well, it is a horror movie about a billionaire on an island. And then I was like, well, knowing what we know about billionaires and their islands, I guess maybe that's kind of like a not a given, but like a something fucky is going on here.
I guess
so,
that's
like,
true.
But also it's like, where is the ethics of their like marketing and stuff for it? Like you're gonna get a bunch of people to pay for tickets for this movie, and then they sit down and watch it, and they're like, oh, I actually cannot watch this. Yeah. So I guess also it would be depend on like, I don't know, a theater's refund policy or something like that.
True.
So, I don't know. I think in general, like on that topic and then kind of just on the topic in general, I have mixed opinions and mixed feelings about it.
It's kind of how I feel about it. But, all right, shall we dive in just straight into the log line?
Let's go.
When tech billionaire Slater King meets cocktail waitress Frida at his fundraising gala, he invites her to join him and his friends for a dream vacation on his private island. Wild nights soon blend into sun-soaked days, but when strange things start to happen, Frida must uncover the truth if she hopes to make it out alive. I'm down with that.
Yeah. I don't think I have any notes.
Yeah. Kudos. All right. So we open up, and first scene is you get the sound of a Polaroid, and then it's like this blurred shot of what I thought was a chameleon. Lizard, some sort of amphibian, reptile, whatever.
Yeah,
so
a lizard.
I just love the Polaroid because that just takes me back to, like, again, my comfort at Texas Chainsaw Massacre, like the cha-ching, and in like its own right, and I'm like, like that.
Yeah, it's a good throwback. I think there's a lot of like Polaroid stuff in horror movies.
Yeah,
you get an instant picture in a way that, you know, is more novel than the instant picture on our phones.
This is true.
Yeah, so we get the lizard immediately. This is my second bullet point. Lizard. Chekhov's lizard. So keep that in mind. Because I was right.
Yeah.
And then cutscene. It was very kind of quick.
Yeah.
Quick intro. Cutscene to someone lighting incense in a bathroom. We are introduced to our main character, Frida. Yep. Sitting on the toilet scrolling, as one does.
Again, it's like our discussion of like how are things going to become more modern and depicting modern day. Like this was spot on.
Oh yeah,
on the toilet, scrolling, and then it was like it touched me because she was checking her own Instagram feed of like Frida's nails or whatever, and it had like 21 followers, and I was like, well, that feels close to home, but that's okay.
It's fine.
But then it was like you're scrolling and scrolling and scrolling, and then she sees this video of Slater King apologizing, and then what do? You go straight to Google and Google what the apology is for.
What is he apologizing for?
And
it's like kind of one of those vague celebrity apologies, right? And then he said distinctly, like, this one line, he was like, I've said sorry so many times that it feels like it doesn't mean anything anymore. Yeah. Which
comes back around
and is super interesting.
But much of the headlines were just like, the note I made was like, it says like abuse of power and regrettable behavior, which is like
again, those nothing headlines that don't mean anything, and it's just like, I have opinions.
I did like the way that the bathroom scene was shot, because at one point she's scrolling and we see her feed, and then it kind of flips and we hear the audio from her feed, but we just see the glow in her eye, and I was like, that's a cool touch.
It is a cool touch, and she definitely did a good job with like kind of that like dead eye stare that you get when you're scrolling. I was like, oh man, I've been there in the TikTok hole or whatever, but so like Slater King, also the name Slater King, disgusting.
Spot on. I love it.
It's spot on. Yeah. I'm just like, of course his name is Slater King. And I just, one of my notes was, it's giving Armie Hammer, to be honest. And I stand by that. So she's kind of pulled out of her phone-induced reverie by her presumed roommate.
Yeah.
They have a little roommate back and forth, and then it's off to work to the drudgeries of wage labor.
Yeah, I will make a note. I feel like they do kind of set in this breadcrumb of like the roommate's asking for rent. So we're starting to see like she's struggling for money.
Yes.
And she's in a bit of a weird place, which I think that class system, if you will, plays into her being like, sure, I'll go to an island with a millionaire because what else? Yeah, billionaire, because what else do I have going on?
Yeah,
but yes, exactly. So then she's off to her job.
So she is a cocktail waitress for fancy galas. She's kind of in the back, kind of getting chewed out a bit by her boss, who's like, you were too chatty last time. Remember to smile more. Just kind of general bullshit that people say to cocktail waitresses, I feel like. Don't forget to smile, he says.
I will say, so this was your first watch of this movie.
It was, yes.
I saw this movie in theaters and was like flabbergasted. So this is my second watch through. To me, on the second watch, this movie is so much more obvious. The amount of breadcrumbs sprinkled throughout this movie. I think I don't know if other people caught them on the first watch and was like, that was boring and really predictable, but
I was also, I think through most of it, I was kind of like, well, what does that mean? You know, what is the significance of this? Like through a lot of it, and then we get to the end and I'm like, okay, everything makes sense now. And I do think I did, because I did restart it and I watched about half of it again. And I was like, maybe some of this, like, I'm not sure about the rewatchability, because like it's that curiosity that like what is going on that really kind of leads you through the movie. So there's pros and cons to that kind of storytelling. I feel like
I just clocked so much more of it, because it's like tells her all that and she goes, well, he told me he liked my nails last time. So I don't even think I caught. She has already said, I've already had an interaction with him.
Oh.
Like, I think that went completely over my head.
Yeah, same.
And then in, like, just shooting work and whatnot, she's talking to her bestie, and she says stuff like, I can't magically erase shit from my brain. Mm-hmm. And this is just in reference, she's talking to her best friend about some skis-ball guy that she's gone back to, but it's like, again, talking about memory and erasing things and remembering things and forgetting stuff. It's like, okay, this actually kind of smacked me in the face this watch. So I was like, this is actually really obvious.
On that thing, talking about like the skis ball that the roommate is dealing with, Frida says something pretty interesting of like, pretty interesting, especially knowing what we know after watching it through again, of like, stop giving away your power, have some self-respect.
I made a note of that too.
Stop going back to him,
Yep.
like that kind of, and I'm like, oof, okay, yeah, that's rough, you know?
Yeah.
It's like her perspective. I don't know where I'm going with that, but it was just like something that hit me immediately,
Yeah.
and then like thinking about it now, I'm like, that sucks.
Yeah.
So we got the little talk in the back, and then it's onto the floor, onto the gala service, in this big, super white room.
Yeah.
And Frida's like pouring a glass of champagne for a patron or whatever, and overfills it because Slater King walks up onto the stage.
Swoon.
And the roommate's name is Jess, by the way.
Thank
just
you.
to
I'll
plug that in
I'll
there.
ask you several
Yes,
times
okay.
throughout this.
I did not get everybody's name this time because I'm like, I don't care what your name is, but like I tried to get most of the names down. So they're going through service, and then they're like back in the employee area, and she's like, explain this to me, because
it's like basically they like my perception of it was they like work the event, sneak off, put on gowns, and then try to like assimilate into the event as
like the after party or something.
I thought it was the same thing.
Okay, because it's in a different room, and there's all these like glass boxes with like fancy artifacts and stuff in them.
Because it was some sort of like dinner, clearly, and presentation, because there's like a speaker up on the staircase.
Yeah.
So who knows? Maybe it was an after party, but basically they slip into gowns, go in to say this after party, and like it's just this cute interaction of like they talk about how to walk in heels, and it's like, again, I think we're sprinkling in breadcrumbs of like, she is clearly trying to interact with a class of people that she doesn't necessarily fit in with.
Yeah.
Because they talk about walking in heels, and then she fucking bites it in the middle of this room. And I love this because like, I just think she nailed the best friend interaction perfectly, because she falls, the other best friend's just like, oh no. And then Slater King comes swooping in to help her up
with a backlight and batting eyelashes. Yeah, scoops her up like a proper gentleman.
Yeah.
And then so she like had broken her heel, not her foot, like her shoe.
Yeah.
Right, the shoe that she could not walk in. And I guess I have this thing with the realism of shoes and how
infuriating they are.
Yeah, so she broke her heel, and then he goes down, and he breaks her other heel, like breaks it off, and he's like, I've seen that in movies, I've always wanted to do that, and I'm sitting there thinking, I'm like, that's not how heels work. You still can't walk in heels if there's no heel. You can't do that.
I had the same thought. I was like, so then now she basically has to walk on her tiptoes for the rest of the evening by her own doing, because she no longer has a heel to support her, because you can't walk on a teeter-totter of a... Yeah.
But then, okay, so this is my thing. Because that is absolutely something that... Well, one, I think it's funny that he broke the other heel off. Because, like, that's absolutely something a man would not understand and would absolutely do. Thinking that he's being heroic.
Yeah.
But then it's not addressed again. It's not really shown that she's, like having difficulties walking. And it's just, like, it's fine after that. And that...
It's just called
that really bothered me.
It's called a loophole.
I know, it's a loophole.
It's a plot hole,
it's bad. It's stupid, especially if it's directed by a woman who walks in heels. You know, I'm like, you could have done something better. You could have shown that she was struggling to walk, but still fawning over this man. Because, like, I don't know, why have that part in it at all? Yeah. It just took me out of it because it's so stupid.
The secondary writer is a man, so perhaps he wrote this block.
Yeah, maybe he wrote that part. Okay, cool, got it.
So, but yeah, so that fiasco happens, and then somebody kind of like calls his name, and he just is like, okay, bye, and like goes to his friend, but then comes back and asks her name.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, this is a red flag because she's already been on your island. So
which we find out
Yeah.
later. Well, it's definitely a red flag because he's just like charming her all over again, right?
Yeah.
So he like scoops her and Jess along and introduces them in a flurry to all of his glamorous friends. And all this stuff.
The way that I noted this scene, I said, then we get a montage of powerful white man bullshit.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure.
Because it's just schmoozing and introducing to people and party and drink and food and whatnot. And then she's meeting all these people and someone asks her if she's going to remember all the names. And she says, yeah, I've got a good memory. And I underlined in bold said, oh, do you? Oh, do you?
I missed that part. That's crazy.
Again, to the breadcrumbs, it's like on the second watch, I was like,
okay.
Zoe Kravitz literally was like, here it is, all the way through. Duh! And, yeah.
You can't tell me that you don't understand it. I was leading you to the answer the whole time.
Yeah.
And then he also introduces her to his therapist, Rich, or whatever, who, I do love that actor. He's a good actor.
Okay.
He was, also, rest in peace, David Lynch. He's like David Lynch's muse, I feel like, because he's been in almost every single movie that David Lynch has ever done.
It's possible.
Kevin McLaughlin or something like that. So I like him a lot. Sucks that he's a scumbag.
Yeah.
In the movie. I don't know if he's a scumbag in real life, but anyway, he introduces her to his therapist, Rich, and then she's like, ha ha ha, blink twice if I'm in danger, and he puts his glasses down and blinks twice.
Yeah.
And then we get the movie. Also, so I'm going.
Go.
Before I watched the movie, it took me, for some reason, I kept thinking, I'm like, it's called Don't Blink. But it's the opposite of Don't Blink. It's blink twice. So, I'm glad that when I introduced it, I wasn't like, this is the Don't Blink episode.
I would have been like, I'm sorry, we're going to try that again.
Cut that.
Oh.
Anyway, everyone's having a grand old time at this gala situation.
Yeah, but basically, everyone's having a great time, and then his assistant's like, hey, we gotta go. Mm-hmm. And he just up and leaves, and the best friends
have to go to the island. We're going to the island tonight.
Goodbye. And then he comes back, and the best friends are kind of having a moment of oh, he's so dreamy, da-da-da-da. And then he comes running back, and he's like, do you want to come with us?
Mm-hmm. Red flag.
Yeah, come on, girls. But again, I think it's the class of it. Mm-hmm. It's the fact of if you're living in an apartment with a roommate and you're struggling to pay your bills, why would you say no?
Yeah.
You just had an interaction with him where he was pleasant and you had all this fun.
Yeah. And it's something out of a rom-com. I was watching part of this with my roommate, and she was like, she must read a lot of fanfic because that only happens in fanfic. I was like, word. So obviously she agrees to go to this fancy island on his private jet to this weird little paradise.
Yeah.
They're flying in, and then we get the shot where he's sleeping on her shoulder, and she's looking down at the island, and it's beautiful, wonderful, whatever. Then they're all lined up once they get to the island, and the assistant comes trotting along with a bag, and she's like, phones, everyone. And at this point I was like, no fucking way. No way. No way in hell. You're going to a billionaire's island.
Yeah.
First of all, again, red flag.
Yeah.
And then you're not going to have your phone. I don't care about this disconnection culture. That's nice. But no.
Yeah.
No. I could never.
If this was if I was a single woman and this was a wealthy lesbian, I'd be like, yeah, take my phone. That's fine.
Yeah, you're right. Same.
I'd be like, take my phone. Best case scenario, you're a vampire and I just live here for the rest of my life.
No, you're not wrong, because same.
But in this cut, Frida doesn't seem to really have much of an issue, but it's the best friend that's like, what? And Slater does this shit of, well, you don't have to do anything you don't want to do. Mm. And I made a note, that's such a powerful white man bullshit ruse that goes on of well, you're in control. You don't have to do anything you want to do.
Just say no.
Yeah.
It's not like I have all the power here.
Exactly.
You could be afraid to say no.
Exactly. It's not like there's any peer pressure happening. No, this is fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Group gets together. Do you know the guy with the fucking Polaroid's name? Because he's just the guy with the Polaroid.
No, but I think isn't that Christian, like the actor Christian Slater? I think that's Christian Slater.
No, it's not him in this scene. I mean, he probably does at some point. But anyway, someone has the Polaroid camera. And
Yeah, it is. It's Christian Slater. He has because he's the one going around clicking all the pictures.
Yeah,
right?
okay.
And they're all on the stairs.
Yeah,
right?
and he goes, making memories, and takes it.
Yeah, I like when I did my like partial second watch.
Yeah.
And I got to that part, I was just I think I laughed out loud, and I'm like, that's so fucked up.
Well, this is awkward because those are the memories left. But
Yes.
so we get that, and then we get our title card.
Yes, which was interesting because it was just like just a boop,
Yeah.
blink and you miss it.
I was about to say maybe that's what they were going for.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, and then we just kind of get right into it, and Slater's showing her around and takes her to a room, and like a tiny nugget of like he struggles to get the side door open, which I was like, I don't know the point of this because I don't think that ever comes back around.
It never came back around.
So
it was not Chekhov's stuck door.
Yeah, no, none of that. But I did make a note. I thought it was really interesting. A lot of this beginning part when they're at this, we'll call it a resort, I guess, his island, whatever. So much of the cinematography is focused on her, which I thought that was interesting because we're in this extravagant setting. She's trying to take all this in, and our focus is Frida.
Yeah.
So I thought that was like, I feel like that was definitely a choice
for sure
by Zoe Kravitz to spin it that way.
Yeah, for sure. I think it was a good decision, right? Because it's like we're kind of experience everything from like her own lens, right? Which makes sense because she's not technically, but experiencing all of this for the first time, right? So she's given like clothes and stuff, and so she goes into the bathroom to explore, right? And finds like a little bottle of free perfume, right?
Yep.
And then also opens a drawer and out rolls a lipstick thing.
Yeah.
And she pulls it out, and there's like this long hair in it, and she's
it's like old and crusty.
Yeah, old and crusty with like a long gross hair in it, and she's like, what did she say? She like tossed it. She was like, ew, and then tossed it in the trash, and it was like, better luck next time, bitch, or something like that.
Yeah.
Something like disparaging. And then so in this shot, Frida has short hair,
yeah.
right? But we learned that at one point, Frida, who had been on the island before, as we learned, had long hair. So it's like, was that her lipstick? Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Again,
weird.
My first watch through, I never clocked that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah,
right? Yeah.
very, very much. But again, now on the second one, like I was like, so much foreshadowing. So much of this is so fucking obvious in hindsight.
Yeah.
But the old cleaning woman walks in. So I Googled this actress.
Yes.
This is like her only American film she's ever been in.
Good for her.
I would love to know the story of how we found her because she's incredible.
She's excellent.
I
love her.
She was in, I would say, like a handful, maybe 4 or 5. Like she has some movies listed under her, all Spanish, I believe. But I was like, that's incredible because she nails this part.
She really
nails
does.
this part. But she comes in and just says "Red Robin" and pinches her cheek and walks away and has a snake tattoo. And I'm like, she's the vibe. She's the horror vibe for me.
Yeah, and then Frida's like very confused. She's like, I don't know what any of that meant.
Yeah.
But yeah, she like just repeats like red rabbit.
Yeah.
And then she comes out of her room. It's Jess. They're both wearing the same thing.
They're all dressed in white and they're all matching.
Yes. All of them are wearing the same thing.
Yeah. But I think as they're walking out, we see some shots of, I hate to say this, but dare I say the help, like people working on the grounds. And everyone's like kind of creepily staring and not saying anything.
Like this kind of weird leering.
Yeah, and I think it's like this balance in tone throughout the entire movie of like, this is kind of creepy and not quite right, but now we're partying, and this is like a different vibe, and I think that's like the seesaw of this movie, if you will.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting that it was like, that it's like this like creepy, leering, like almost misdirection, and then like the source of that misdirection was like brown people, right? Yeah. Where it was like, actually, it's like the white people that are the fucking monsters.
Yes.
So yeah, I don't know how I felt about that kind of weird misdirection just kind of thrown in there. I guess maybe it was like a setting the tone, setting the saying that is like, it is in paradise, but these people know something.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, they're walking. They're meeting up by the pool.
Yeah.
Yes.
I basically just said, like, I feel like this is probably going to be our most vague description of a movie, because so much of this movie is just like, now they're at the pool and we're relaxing and like setting a tone of just like
drinking
a
champagne.
Vacation vibe.
Yeah.
Again, we kind of just cut to them, and like I made a note, like some douche talking about being a crypto king. Like,
I want to be the Slater king of crypto.
Yeah.
I was like, no, this is this kind of crowd.
It's like you're getting these snippets of starting to meet this group in
getting to know them.
Yeah, who's who, what's what guy is with what girl, that type of stuff.
Yes.
There's like a guy high looking at the clouds, and then Sarah. So our girl that comes back around at the end is a final girl.
Yes.
Again, on my first watch, I was like, this is incredible. Like, I feel like as we discuss this, I'm going to spoil a lot of stuff ahead of time, because I think it has to come with this conversation.
Yeah.
To me, on my first watch, I was like, oh, the best friend dies. Like, now what? Oh, like this random character came swooping in. If you pay attention, they're very much setting the scene for like, Sarah has a certain type of skill set.
Yes.
That is going to make her prepared to have to physically fight for her life.
Yes, yeah, that's a good point.
Because in this first scene, they talk about how she was basically on some variation of like Survivor.
Yeah, hot
Survivor babes or something.
Yeah, and it's 8 seasons on Hot Survivor Babes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so she like she's like spent like years training for the next season, but they canceled the show because all of a sudden now they decided it was exploitative.
Yeah.
And she's kind of interesting because she's kind of like framed as like this like cold, like this cold character, like a cold bitch, right?
Yeah.
And when they meet at the gala, you know, Frida like put out her hand to like shake her hand, and she was like, nice nails.
Yeah.
Did not shake her hand. Rude. And then there's like this weird kind of like brief tension, push and pull between like Sarah and Slater, and Frida and Slater, and like Slater in the middle kind of thing, right? So it's like set up framing Sarah as like this rival kind of on the first watch, and like this like kind of like this cold bitch, right?
Yeah. Because
she's also here with a guy, Cody or something. I don't know, the chef.
I was going to say, I definitely don't know his name, but yes.
The chef guy, there's a chef, and he keeps calling her babe, and she's like, don't call me that, right? But we're set up to kind of believe that like that's her partner, but she wants Slater, and she's like she's not fucking with Frida being around, getting in her way.
Yeah.
Set up like that at first.
But see, again, on the second watch, so the first time, very much, you're like, this bitch is jealous of Frida.
Oh,
she would never team up with her to take this on. She probably wants Frida dead, if we were honest about it. But it's like, when you rewatch it, she never does anything awful or nasty or condescending. It is all in how she's shot, and sometimes we see her viewpoint, and like assumptions are made, and I think it's very telling about just how we view women and their actions, of like, this is just a certain type of woman that maybe doesn't like this guy that she's with. And the guy is kind of a fucking weirdo.
Yeah.
And, like, is kind of annoying.
Yeah.
So, but it was interesting. It's like I mean, obviously, I fuck with women that act like that. I am one of those women, if we're honest. So it's like, to watch a to and fall into that, it was interesting.
Yeah,
it was
like, I liked that as a choice.
Yeah.
To kind of, like, frame her that way in a first watch.
Yeah.
And then, like, knowing what you know, going back and, like, rebuilding how you see her character. Because, like, yeah, I that was one choice that I really did like. Because it's like she was also, like, the first person who, like, listened to Frida and, like, commiserated with her.
Yeah.
Even though she was depicted as, like, this enemy at first, right?
Yeah.
So I like that kind of, like, subverting expectations or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, I also see what you're saying of, like, how you're right. She never really did anything that was that offensive. It was all about, so we're kind of watching this from, like, Frida's perspective, right? Of how she was framed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But basically, after they kind of introduce us to Sarah, Frida's just in the pool and downs her drink and chokes on the raspberry garnish that was in there. And it's, like, just still depicting, like, Frida is trying so hard to, like, enjoy this and be a part of this group. But, like, she just has never lived this life and is struggling at every turn, kind of.
Yeah.
So,
and then good old Slater comes in and
are you okay?
Saves her.
Yeah.
Are you okay? Are you having a good time?
I think I will be forever triggered when someone's like, "Are you having a good time?" Like, I think forever that will be eerie to me from now on.
Yeah, same. Same.
I also want to talk about the sound design of this movie.
Okay.
Because I think the sound design of whatever music we get in the background is very much working towards setting the tone of, are we on vacation and partying, or is the hair on the back of my neck standing up and this is not quite right? Mm-hmm. So, because again, in this little pool scene, like, the music kind of kicks up and it's happy-go-lucky and we're partying and we're in paradise and everything's okay.
Yeah. And it does. There are, like, different... the sound design was good. The soundtrack was, like, good in an eerie way, where it is, like, very, like, purposely, like, upbeat music.
Yeah.
You know? It's, like... And then it's, like, just not upbeat things happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they go off, Slater and Frida go off to chat.
Yeah.
And Slater is talking about how therapy changed his life.
Yes.
Which, like, yes, men, please go to therapy.
Yes, please.
Completely support that. But coming from Slater King, immediately I was like, red flag. Red flag. Because there is this like trope of, like, and you see this, like, with, like, other celebrities like Jonah Hill, how he, like, went to therapy and stuff and then used therapy language and weaponized it in a way that just perpetually was gaslighting his victims.
Yeah.
And so, yes, go to therapy, but go to therapy and mean it.
Yeah.
Don't do it to get better at being an asshole.
Yeah.
You know?
Go to therapy for the sake of going to therapy and working on your problems, not to learn more about how to manipulate other people.
Yes.
But, yeah, so on the topic of therapy, he, again, breadcrumbs, carrot right, like, hello, this is right in front of us.
Hello.
He starts about, like, maybe forgetting is a gift. Because he's talking about repressed memories and whatnot. And then it's like, I clocked, it's like anytime they start talking about memories and forgetting or remembering, then something happens to take us out of that moment before you can really clock what's being said. Because like, as they're really going down this tunnel of, like, it's a gift to forget, and she's like, well, I think she kind of feels opposite of that. And then the assistant drops a bunch of bags.
Bunch of red gift bags all over the ground. It is kind of like it does do that a lot, where it's like, it doesn't want you to think too hard. It is leading you, the plot is leading you along with breadcrumbs, but don't think too hard about it.
Yeah. I have to get better about that in my writing.
Oh,
breadcrumbs.
Yeah. Breadcrumbs.
I just like to fucking, here's what I'm talking about. I gotta get better at breadcrumbs.
I love foreshadowing.
Yeah.
I think it's so fun.
I'm in a vein of just smacking people in the face with it, and I gotta cool it.
Chill, man.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and then we also get, so he's in repressed memory therapy, and they're wandering along. The assistant drops by, and then we also pass the lady from the room is there chopping the head off of the snake.
Casually. With a bag, just...
Big old snake. And then he goes, there's a lash viper problem, and I put in my notes, whatever that is, Chekhov's fake snake. Because it's like, I've never heard that lash vipers don't exist.
Casual.
Yeah, but then, so we're like, okay, what's up with these snakes kind of thing. And then, again, moves right along.
Yeah.
Don't think too hard about it. It's time to party. It's time for dinner.
Time for dinner. Time for a new white dress, and time to go act like we're rich.
Yes. We're at this dinner. The chef is being pretentious and annoying.
It was giving the menu vibes. Like,
I did watch that.
very much fine dining to the max.
Yes.
But
I did watch that. That was pretty good.
Yes.
Yeah, I quite like that one. So again, they're all wearing the same thing, right?
Yes.
And they're chatting, and then Christian Slater's being a douchebag to Frida.
Yeah.
Being like, so what do you do when you're not here? Oh, wait, first.
But I was going to say before we get there.
I got the order switched in my head for that one.
This one gave me like the heebie-jeebies, and again, I think I just don't think a man's gonna understand this moment between two women where Frida takes a steak, goes to serve Slater a steak, which but okay.
Why?
And he's like, oh, I don't eat red meat, and she's like, oh, and puts his steak back, and then puts her steak back. And then we get this cut of the best friend, like, obviously unspoken because you're at dinner and you can't fully call her out, but like that best friend look of like, bitch, what?
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, I love that. Yes. I absolutely love that. So we get that interaction, and then to douche magoosh.
Yeah. Christian Slater's like questioning her about what she does, and he's like, what do you do when you're not spilling stuff on your dress, right? And you look down, and she had spilled like red meat sauce or something on her robe, and then Jess goes, Kool-Aid on the cult robe, and I lost it. I was like, that's pretty good. I like Jess a lot. She's really funny. Anyway, so they're talking, and then Slater's like, why don't you ask him how he lost his pinky? And then they change the subject. Yeah. Again, don't think too hard about it.
Yeah.
And then it's time to do drugs, everybody.
Well, yeah.
They pull out this like little bottle of MDMA and like psilocybin serum or something. Yeah. And he's like, who's first? And then Frida just goes for it immediately. And then we get this.
Again, it's a drug montage. Again, this description is going to be very vague of this movie because we get a lot of these montages of just them, like, rolling around and tripping on drugs in the darkness. And you're like, I'm just assuming this is a basic drug trip. Nothing bad.
Well, and then I also want to talk about the scene when she's taking the drugs and, like, Slater is, like, giving it to her, and how we get, like, this, like, upwards shot of, like, her with her mouth open and him, like, dropping the drugs. And I was just like, I hate that. Yeah. I hate that. Like, I can appreciate it and what it's doing, because obviously it's, like, this power thing.
Dominant, submissive.
Yeah, kind of thing. But I was just like, ew. There's, like, a lot of parts that it's just like, ew, why? Yeah. Why? I get why, but why? But yeah, so then there's a drug montage, and
before we go too deep into the drug montage, one thing I did flag at dinner, he's nasty to Frida and makes her feel like shit for doing the getting blood on her. And then, so the best friend starts a conversation with Sarah and is talking to her about, that's when she's like, the show has been canceled after 22 years, and it talks about all that training for nothing. And Frida says, I'm sure it'll come in handy. It was in my face the whole time.
Here's the carrot.
So anyway, I flagged that. I was like, this was actually really fucking obvious that she was going to come back around at the end as one of our final girls. But
that's a good flag.
But
So then we get this shot where it's after they're all rolling around in the grass, tripping and stuff. It's Jess and Frida in bed, and they're going to bed, settling down after tripping, and it's still nighttime. So I'm like wondering, because I'm like, you can't just take drugs.
Was this on this first trip?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. Because
Oh,
they're
yeah.
laying down and they're going to bed, and then Frida's looking at her dress, and she's like, "There's no stain."
Yeah.
So something happened that she doesn't remember.
Yeah.
And there's no stain. But also I did make the note. I was like, you can't just take drugs and then go to bed. So how long were they tripping? Is this day 2, day 3? Which I do think is interesting because there is this theme of them eventually not knowing what fucking day it is.
Oh, yeah.
It
Constantly, Frida's like, what day is it? And everybody's
Yeah.
like, I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. So and then we get like the kind of grander montage of
Yeah.
this brunch, and then hanging out, and then dinner, and then drugs, and then again and again and
Yeah,
again.
it's just cyclical, basically.
And then I was like, taking MDMA every day is fucking crazy.
Yeah.
Your brain is gonna
Fried.
be fried.
Fried.
Done. No dopamine, no serotonin, no nothing. You're gonna get so depressed you can't do that. It's bad for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, so then we're like, yeah, there's the montage, and then where are we going after that?
So we get a one-on-one with Slater and Frida again, kind
Okay.
of spending time together, and they're just talking, and he asks how she got the scar on her eye.
He does ask how she got, and why?
Which, like, that is
so
disgusting.
fucked up, dude.
So disgusting.
Yeah, it's
Like, and I think on my first watch, I was like, that seems suspect. Like, that probably comes back
Yeah,
around.
yeah.
But you're just not
I
quite
didn't
sure
even-
how.
I didn't even clock it. I thought it was like some allusion to like her like a traumatic childhood that she had.
Yeah.
But then when we get to that scene later of where we learn where the scar comes from, which hint is from Slater.
Yes.
I was like, oh, that's dark that he's gonna
Yeah.
ask. Like, this guy is
Manipulative,
already a sicko.
gaslighting,
Yeah.
like,
disgusting. Then we get like a couple scenes of her like she'll wake up and she looks under her nails and there's like dirt under her nails, right?
yeah.
And this happens pretty soon, I think. And there's dirt under her nails.
So it's after this little one-on-one interaction.
Yes.
And they, again, have a little bit of setting the scene of, like, Slater's, like, kind of a douchebag in his gaslighting because, like, she's trying to explain her animals to him, and
Yeah.
he's like, what? And then basically just, like, leaves her.
Yeah.
So she wakes up in bed, has his vape,
Yes.
and notices dirt under her nails.
Yes. Yeah.
So
One note, what's up with this vape? Chekhov's vape.
I love the presence of the vape.
I do
think
too.
this is the... I know this technically isn't a horror movie, which we'll get to this at the very end, my thoughts on that, but like this thriller horror. I think this is the only time I've seen a vape play such a large role in a movie. Like, it's core to the script and how this plays out.
It is, and I quite like it actually because
Yeah.
I like when you're playing with things that are current.
Oh,
and
yeah.
like everybody be vaping these days, you
Yeah.
know, and that's fine. So it's like it makes sense. Like, of
Yeah.
course, this like douche billionaire is vaping.
Exactly.
It just
Exactly. It
makes
fits.
sense.
It fits.
Yeah, it fits really well in the whole story.
Yeah, so she goes to return his vape to him
Yes.
at his little bungalow, if we will call it that. And he's not in there, and she kind of settles into the chair, and like we get this vibe of like she's settling in and kind of like owning it, and then he comes in and she kind of scampers and goes back to this like, oh, hi, sorry.
Yeah, that's a good catch actually. That's like she was kind of like lounging, and
Yeah.
he's like there, and she gets kind of back into her like flustered, almost rabbit-esque kind of behavior
Yeah.
around him.
And then there's
Rich walks out. The
there's
therapist.
there's a guy with him, and she's like, oh, I remember you, and he has this look in his eyes of like, how do you remember me? And she's like, from the gala, and he goes, amazing. that is so creepy and nasty when we know how this goes.
Yes,
so.
it is so creepy. Also, he's walking out with a little red gift bag. Yeah. That we saw from the assistant dropping everywhere.
Yeah.
So then, pretty much just jumps back into dinner.
We cut to the pool, and the best friend has lost her lighter, so we're kind of starting this. The lighter's going to be in rotation and get lost and come back around later on, and then Chef Boy loses his knife. So again, I feel like our breadcrumbs are starting to get larger now, where it's like things are happening, and this is going to come back around probably in 30 to 45 minutes. So
yes.
And then, again, we just get, like, this one-on-one with Frida and Slater, and they're laying in the grass, and...
Oh, yeah.
And
then she's
this is, like, again, I think I resonated with this moment, because she's like, something really bad is about to happen. Mm-hmm. And in movie language, you're like, oh, is she onto this? And I think he clocks it too. And he goes, why would you say that? And she goes, when things are good, that's when the bad stuff happens.
Yeah.
And I guess I can't speak for men, but I feel like that is very much like a woman's approach to life. Or at least that I fall into that a little bit. Because I'm like, things are going so good, this shit has to blow up on me soon.
Yeah, and I wonder if that's... It probably is. I don't really know men's perspective on it. And I'm like, is that like a gendered thing? Or is that just like a trauma thing? Mm-hmm. But then you think about it a little bit, and like those are pretty much interwoven together. True. But yeah, like I feel like that is like super common for someone who has like trauma, who has a traumatic past.
Yeah.
They're feeling happy, they're feeling comfortable. They're like, okay, when is the next shoe gonna drop?
Yeah.
Yeah. And
to which he responds, all he says is, "Are you having a good time?" Blech. Who knows? If someone asks me, "Are you having a good time?" at an event, I might just punch him in the face.
Yeah. I'll be there.
I'll be like, what'd you put in my drink?
I'm sorry.
Have I been here before with you before? Tell me more.
Tell me more.
So, and then we get I just say that
it's dinner again.
Yeah, it's just another cut shot, and the old woman's killing snakes again, and then we're back to dinner. So, we get a reference to the lighter again. Like, Jess is like, who has my lighter?
She's like, I need to write my name on that thing.
Yeah.
Again, finds the lighter.
Breadcrumbs are getting larger.
Mm-hmm. Indeed.
Yeah.
And then it's more drugs, more running around.
And I said again to the sound design.
Yeah.
So it's like you get dinner and everything's kind of quiet. And then like, the drugs are out. We're partying again. Yes. Everything's okay.
Everything's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, drugs are back, and everybody's dancing, having a good time, and, like, then Jess kind of wanders off, and then we hear scream. Yep. And we're like, okay, Frida was right, bad shit is starting to happen, and she gets bit by a snake.
Yeah.
One of the lash vipers that are wandering, and also, by the way, those snakes that were in the movie were not vipers, those were pythons. Whatever.
I love that.
Yeah, so she gets bit by a snake, and everybody's like, what the fuck? And Slater comes around and is like, this part is so ridiculous and very man, but also, like, I kind of get it, where it's like, I think Frida was like, is it poisonous? And he was like, no, it's venomous. And then it's like, but she won't die.
Yeah.
And then Jess is like freaking out because, like, yeah, you got bit by a weird snake. There's no hospitals around, as Christian Slater likes to point out.
Yeah. Channing Tatum, whatever, comes in and violently kills this snake with a champagne bottle.
True.
And I thought this was a good touch because it's like the mask is starting to slip. Like, we're seeing a little bit of what really lives inside.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. And then also it's like, well, how dangerous is this snake?
Yeah.
Right? But so apparently Jess is going to be okay.
Yeah.
And they kind of go off from the party. Frida brings her some more water. And they have this moment where Jess is like,
a very best friend moment.
Yes.
I think we all have had one of these interactions somewhere along the line of where you're somewhere and one of your friends goes, I want to go home. Like, this isn't
yeah.
good. And another friend is still kind of stuck holding on to
The moment.
I almost want to say like artificial happiness. Like
Yeah.
you're experiencing something new and you're trying to convince yourself this is really good, so you don't want to lose out on it.
Yeah, definitely. And so, and it is a really good moment. And when I was watching this with my roommate, she made a really good comment of like, imagine like how isolated Jess must feel, where she's saying she kind of is starting to, well, remember, basically, is this is what we learn later, is that this venom of the snake awakens their memories. We'll get more into that.
Yeah.
But so she's clearly troubled. There's clearly something wrong.
Yeah.
And then she's like, Frida just like does not care.
Kind of like snaps at her.
Yeah. She's like, but what about what's so wrong?
Yeah.
The great food, the champagne in Tsunami, the tsunamis of champagne.
Yeah.
And then like that moment of just like how isolating that must have been for Jess when she's like starting to like, who knows what's going on in her head. She's clearly afraid, and their friend is just like not there. Not supportive.
And we see it because she's like, well, I'm just gonna go to bed, and she goes to like head back to her room, and then we get it like the creepy sound design. It's like this whoom sound, and I'm like, that is so good. That's like good. Such a good choice.
Yes.
But and then she looks up at the moon and gets her little bloody nose that we will start to see that when your nose bleeds, you get memories apparently.
Yeah. But we don't know that at this point, which I think is also interesting. Of like, we're still kind of confused as to what is happening. Right?
Yes. Yeah.
Because we don't know if this like snake venom is gonna actually kill her. Yeah. So when we see her nose bleed and stuff, we're like, oh shit, she's probably gonna be dead. We just don't know how. Yeah. So then it's next morning.
Frida is in her room getting ready.
Yes.
And she's out on a walk and she finds a red bag. And then like this kind of cracks me up. Like obviously your decision making is incredibly questionable because you've gone to this island with people that you don't know.
Already.
But then
Bar is
you're
low.
in the middle of the woods. You see a hut that looks rather dilapidated and you think to yourself, I'm going to go see what's inside of that hut.
Yeah. Well.
So she walks in. She sees an entire room of these red bags.
Yes, all on like these weird glass shelves. It's very strange. It doesn't fit in with the rest of the hut.
Not at all. And my old lady's there.
Yeah.
And kind of shocks her. And I forgot to mention this earlier when I was going on my rant about how much I love this woman. So her credit in this movie, her role is listed as badass maid.
Sick.
And I would love to get my hands on the script to see if her role is actually like badass maid.
That rocks.
Incredible.
Actually. I love her.
But they basically just have this little interaction and red rabbit, and she offers her a flask. Yeah, a flask, if you will, of green liquid.
Yeah.
And
again, decision making.
When one is on an island with a billionaire and someone gives you a green liquid, who's to say no? You've been taking MDMA for you don't even know how many days. So she drinks this liquid. It's disgusting. And then old girl just in the sink casually lifts up a towel and it's a bunch of dead snakes.
Yeah.
And Frida freaks out a little bit, rightfully so.
Yeah, rightfully so. And then the lady is kind of like, as Frida's freaking out, the old lady is like screaming at her. Red rabbit. And like pointing, and then Frida runs, and then she runs into the chef guy who's carrying a chicken around. And she's like, I'm sorry, I got lost. And then and then goes back to the main area. And
this is our first little Frida starting to remember.
Yes, it is.
She sees flashes of, we get our first like necklace clanging against the skin, and then she has a flash of the best friend saying, you need to hide this knife.
Yes.
And then she gets a little bit of dried blood under her nose.
Her nose starts to bleed too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, because we get these flashes. She wakes up, and she's got dried blood under the nose. She's got dirt under the nails. And then we hear her throwing up because she presumably drank something weed, venom, and is now retching it up.
Yeah, definitely.
So
then we kind of get to breakfast?
Yes.
Yeah. Breakfast. It's breakfast time. Jess isn't there.
No. And I think this is a really good play on is she hungover or is she going through something different, right? Because, like, she's kind of... We're getting this zoned out feeling, both by how she looks and we've muffled the sound around her.
Yeah.
And we're getting this sound that on first watch, it almost sounds like a lighter flicking to me.
Okay, yeah.
But it's really the necklace on the skin.
Interesting.
And I thought that was really cool because I would be shocked if anyone was like, oh yeah, the first time I watched this, I knew that it was a necklace hitting the skin. Like, it's a sound that you're not going to recognize immediately.
Metallic. Yeah, that's really interesting. I missed that. I definitely missed that. I bet there's a lot of stuff I could stand to pick up again.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Jess is there. Everybody's like kind of messing around when a guy has like a dick drawn in his head.
That's how we snap out of her zone out. Is he's like, really, guys? And then we see that there's a guy with a dick on his forehead.
Yeah, and all the girls seem like really kind of like also like hungover.
Oh yeah,
tired, not doing super great, and all the men are spry and happy, and they're gonna go fishing for grouper. And then it's kind of like, all right, let's have a girls' day.
So I'll bring this up now. Because it didn't become clear to me till the end of the movie, but it's like, so Frida's not feeling well. Sarah's got a bruise on her arm. The crypto guy has a black eye.
Yeah, I caught that. And I have a lot of questions about crypto guy. Honestly.
I think he's one of the girls. I think he's there as someone's sex partner, not as one of the guys.
Yeah, because he kind of is coded that way.
Yes.
It was funny. I was watching this again with my roommate, part of this.
Yeah.
Because I'll get to that. And he's like, she's so funny. She's like, is he gay? Like, immediately, off the bat.
Well, yeah.
And he's wearing a flower crown, and she's like, that's so gay.
Yeah.
So, he kind of is coded that way. We don't really have a clear, like, pairing for him, because everybody else kind of has, like, not a clear pairing.
Yeah.
But, like, kind of like they're probably a thing. Yeah. They're probably a thing, and he doesn't.
Yeah.
So, I guess we can talk about, like, what Slater kind of told him what his role was later.
Yeah.
And how I wish they had done more with this character, but he has a black eye.
Yeah.
So he is kind of put on the same level of like the women that are not feeling too hot in the morning. But he wants to be like part of the guys, so he's like, yeah, I'm down. Can I bring the muffins to go fishing?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so then girls' day. They're all this. Also, I love this. It's so good. They're all laying out and they have like these like clay masks on or something like that.
Before you get too deep into this, so the very beginning of the scene, you get the audio of the necklace against the skin again.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Continue.
So they're all laying out and relaxing and they're like, oh, I really needed this. Like I really needed this time. And then Frida is suddenly, she's like, oh, no, someone asked for the lighter. And then Frida's like, where's Jess? And then they're all wearing, like, these blue clay masks, right? So all their faces are, like, super stiff. And they all kind of, like, look at her. And one of the stoner girl, Hannah?
We can call her Stoner Girl.
Stoner Girl.
Yeah.
Like, looks at her and she's like, who's Jess?
Yeah.
And she's like, are you fucking with me?
Yeah.
Like, what are you talking about? And then starts pretty much having a breakdown.
Oh, yeah.
Goes off, is, like, in the bathroom, takes off her mask, is, like, slapping herself, splashing water on her face. She's like, wake up, wake up, wake up. Because, like, Jess is gone. Jess is missing, was not at breakfast, is not here. And then Sarah comes to check on her.
So before Sarah comes, in this freak out of...
Oh, she hits the mirror.
knife falls out.
So
now you're thinking, oh, we're starting to pick up steam. Like, this is going somewhere.
It's going, it does really kind of go fast from here, I think.
And then Sarah shows up and is basically like, I've got the lighter, and Jess wrote her name on it. So she goes, Jess was clearly here.
Yeah.
I don't know who Jess is, but what is this? Like, Sarah is now like, okay, something is happening. What's going on?
Yeah. Yeah, so then she comes in and they're having this, they're sitting down, she's freaking out, she has the knife, and they're talking, and they both kind of come to this realization. She's like, there's dirt under my nails, and Sarah's like, what the fuck is this? Pointing to the bruise on her arm. And they both come to this realization that none of the women really know anyone here.
Yeah.
No one really knows each other, because up until this point, we were all kind of led on that, like, these are all Slater's friends. They all kind of knew each other. Yeah. They were all, like, part of, like, this whole group, right? Yeah. And since we're, getting most of this narrative from, like, Frida's perspective, that realization, when that hit, that's when I did get chills. I was like, that's horrifying.
I love the performance of the actress for Sarah.
Me too.
Because, like, she has a line where she's like, they're doing this back and forth of, like, are you having a good, kind of going down this route of, are you having a good time or whatever? Yeah. And she's like, well, I'm having a good time, but, like, I'm also feeling like I'm not. Which, like, I think is such a nod to, as women, we're kind of always fighting this internal, is this a good idea? Is it not? Can I just have fun, but am I safe sort of thing? Yeah. So I thought it was, like, the perfect delivery of that. But, like, I feel like I'm also not.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and it, but just that realization where they did not know, they realized they did not know. I was just like, oh, so creeped out. So, from here, my notes turn to trash, because I'm like, actually, I do this thing every single time.
You get to the third act.
Yeah,
you get to the third act, and when shit picks up, you actually just start watching.
I just start watching the movie, and I'm just stop taking notes, and I'm just like, what's happening? Which is good. You know, I think that's fine. Look, that's good, but also...
I try to assure Kale every episode. I'm like, that's fine. The third act is where, like, all of the shit goes happens. Down.
Yeah, which is why I need to be taking notes.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I'll pick it up from here. So... Again, so they're starting to put things together, and we just go, boom, straight from her room into, now they're in the
red bag room.
Yeah, the perfume room. And we are now explicitly being handed our answer. Yes. The perfume is causing them to forget. The perfume that they had in all of their rooms.
Yes.
And then Frida connects the dots that the snake venom is the reason why Jess and Frida started to remember. Mm-hmm. Because Jess got bit. Frida knows she drank it. So, I love this, like, well, how are we going to get everybody to drink it? Yeah. It's horrible. It tastes, like, awful. And Sarah's like, well, just mix it with tequila.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's actually really fucking smart.
It is. It's so smart. But they have also this moment of, like, they're talking about, they're just like, do we call the cops? Do we call the FBI? And then Frida goes on this, like, kind of, like, tangent of, like, okay, we could call the cops, and then tell them what? That something's happening that we don't know, and then all of their, like, their little buddies who they probably play golf with are just, like, fine, and it's like, oh, I gotta find my friend Jess who's missing, and then it's like very...
It's real.
Very real, very of the time of the, like, nothing is gonna happen to this rich person if we go and try and report it. It's just not. It's just not gonna happen, because they're all play golf together.
Yeah.
So, but then they kind of, like, resolve it. They're like, well, we do have to get the phones.
Yeah.
And we have to also wake up the other girls, because they're both have venom in their system, but it hasn't kicked in yet. Yeah. So
the way this flows is basically, and again, it's like, it's such a hard cut. They're in this room discussing this, and then it's just a cut, and they're in the pool, and they're like, tequila shots with the shaker, and they get them to take it, and then I'm just going to call her the assistant, because I don't know her name.
I don't know her name.
The assistant walks by, and they're like, and then as a woman, they're like, oh, take this.
Yeah.
Because I guess I'm assuming they're like, well, we don't know what you've experienced and what you haven't. So they're like, get in here. So she takes the shot, and then she's like, oh, the boys are on the way back. And that's when Frida's like, I need to go get the phones.
Yes.
Let me know if they're coming. And they land on Fat Blunt as their code word, which is good comedic relief here in a little bit. But
It is.
So Frida sneaks off to Slater's bungalow, and I there's like a shift in cinematography here, which I don't know if I fully tracked what they were trying to get, but like she goes into the bungalow and we're only focused on her feet.
Yeah.
So like up until now, it's a lot of like her face, her eyes, whatnot, and then it's like she's creeping in, and all we're seeing is her feet walking across the floor and going. Granted, it's connected a little bit because I think we get the feet and then like a drop of blood because her nose is starting to bleed and she's starting to remember. But I'm like, could we have just kept on her face like we had all maybe for the first hour?
Yeah, we didn't need that.
Yeah. Anyway.
I also do kind of want to like say something about like this kind of. How did you feel about like the mix between like the humor and then also like the horrific in this? Because like there's some parts that felt really silly to me, and like I get like comedic relief and stuff, but like it almost like, because when they're coming to the realization and we're getting all the lore with the perfume and the snake venom, which you know I had to suspend do a little bit of disbelief suspension, because it did almost lose me there, because I'm like, what is this is ridiculous. What are we doing? Like I get it's a plot device, right? But I was also like, oh, was there a better way they could have used this plot device here? Yeah. And then also like the mix between like this humor, I think my consensus on it is like, I don't know if I liked it or not. I think it fit and it didn't at the same time.
My comment on that would be, I think this is an example of how we toe that line of, are we thriller or are we horror? Mm-hmm. I think to keep this mainstream thriller label, we can't let you sit with this horror and this brutality of these women are literally being drugged and raped every night and have no recollection of it. Yeah. Is my take on it. But I get what you're saying.
Yeah. It's like that towing the line. I don't have a consensus on it, but it is something that I like was kind of I've been chewing on a little bit because I don't quite know what my opinion is on that.
I think if they really give this over to a true horror movie, I think those conversations are not as laced with silly quirks from Sarah to lighten the mood. Yeah. And it is deep, dark conversations about what's been going on.
Yeah, for sure.
Which is why I think this should have been a full-blown horror movie, because it could have gotten real fucking dark.
Yeah, it already is dark, though. Yes. But yeah, so it's, anyway, it's funny, in my notes, because, like I said, I stopped taking notes, I was like, so I guess it's just taking a turn that feels a little goofy almost, and then the next bullet point is like, okay, just kidding, there's actually some seriously horrible stuff happening that did make me feel nauseous. Yeah. Because we have Frida looking for the phones, and she spills all of these Polaroids everywhere. Yeah. And she's like freaking out because she's like trying to get the phones to work. Phones aren't working, naturally. No service, obviously. Naturally. Yeah. And then she's looking at some of these Polaroids, and they're Polaroids of like these men that she has not seen before with their fucking little red souvenir bags. Yeah. And it's just like, and then that's kind of when the memories start to trickle in.
Well, and we're getting this, like, these cut shots between you're getting her in the bungalow, and then we're back at the pool. Yeah. The boys are coming back. You have the girls. Sarah's trying to, like, mediate this. And then, like, they're passing around a blunt, and, like, it lands on, like, things are moving, and like Slater's about to go back to his room. Yeah. And she just goes, "We're about to smoke a fat blunt," and just screams blunt at the top of her head. And Frida catches it though, because then we cut to Frida, and she, like, does this motion of like she hears it and knows that she needs to get out.
She's gotta go. And she grabs some of the Polaroids, stuffs them in her dress, and then has to hide because Slater comes back, and he's kind of just like in there. He goes over to the desk to get some of his vape juice, which is a rows of vape juice, so it's crazy. And then he walks back out and then stops, and he is like, what does he say? He says something. He's like, what are you doing there? Or something like that. So
he walks back out. He turns, looks at towards the desk, and he says, what are we going to do about you?
Yes.
So I think on first watch, you're thinking, oh, fuck.
Yeah.
He knows she's there.
Yeah.
No, he's talking about this fucking red chair that he's been arguing all movie about how it needs to be moved and it doesn't feel right here and it needs to be moved there. Yeah. So, again, building tension, creepy sound design in the background, release something silly.
Yeah. A lot of interesting pacing, I think, there. That's where my notes stop. You got to lead the way.
I've got us for the rest of the time, ladies and gents. So while she's under the desk, her nose starts to bleed.
Yes.
And this is when she
really starts to bleed.
Yeah, this is when she gets a flash of her being tackled to the ground. We're getting the connection of how she has dirt under her nails.
Yes.
And then we see them slit Jess's throat.
No, they break her neck. I'm pretty sure.
Oh, I thought it was throat being slit.
I thought it was like one of the kind of thing. Anyway, they see Jess die.
Down for the count because someone makes the comment of she got bit and she's going to remember everything and then Jess is done.
Yes.
Basically then that ends. We're back to current times. They're shuffling the fucking chair around and then as they're shuffling the chair and making noise, she leaves out the side door.
Yeah, she escapes. Goes back towards like
I'm just obsessed with the sound design because we're tension building, creepy sound playing in the background, and then boom, it dies because she's ran far enough. She gets to the pool, and they're like, "Oh my god, Rita!"
and then she's like obviously unsettled, right, and is kind of getting little trickles of flashbacks and stuff, and like kind of Sarah goes over to her, taking the blunt. She hands her the blunt. She's like, you have to smoke this so you look normal.
I love that interaction because it's that we're talking about something, but we're doing our best to appear to others to be doing something else.
Yes. And so she does, and she asks her, she's like, has your venom kicked in yet?
Yeah.
And she's like, yes. And she's like, we saw Jess die.
Yeah.
And we forgot.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's like this just like joint realization, and they look over at Camilla and Heather, the other two women there, and are like, they're ticking time bombs because they did a shit ton of snake venom shots.
Yeah.
They're going to start remembering pretty soon.
Yeah. And then we get to another dinner scene.
Another dinner. We're back at dinner.
Yeah.
So many dinners.
This one's different, though, because Frida and Sarah are definitely on edge.
Yes.
And
I love that. I just like kudos to the acting, too.
Oh, my God,
just like, because you can tell that they're trying to act cool. They're trying to act normal, and then they're obviously not cool or normal right now. And, like, rolling it back to when they were all having fun and stuff. I just think that acting like you are trying so hard to be normal and to be safe and to like make yourself fit into this situation. Yeah. But still that like distress is like spilling out. Yeah. That is like almost, it's like it's obvious, but like no one else really seems to catch it, right? Because the men and stuff just seem like oblivious. Yeah. Which like obviously. Yeah. But
because they're assuming their plan is working.
Yeah.
Everyone's having a good time.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. So I just big kudos to just the acting in general. I think in the movie it's really good, and Channing Tatum did a good job as well. I will say he plays a great fucking creep.
I made the decision at the very end. I was like, I think he did hold his own. He does creep well, but I just wonder if this movie could have been even better had they gotten a no name.
Mm-hmm. Really?
Yeah. I don't know.
I don't know either. Like a no name, I feel like it makes sense that it was him because he's such a recognizable face, right? And he's like this, mainstream. I'm ambivalent about him, right? Like he's fine. He's fine. But like he is also largely loved by like the general public. Yeah, heartthrob, and then like this nice guy, right? And I do really like it when movies. You'll see this in like Promising Young Woman as well, where they use like these heartthrobs or comedians or like these actors that are like that like are largely like a comfort to audiences and then put them in these fucked up freak roles. Yeah. I love that.
That's fair.
I think that kind of casting is really good because it makes you it makes you think and sit with it.
I guess also part of it, though, I think if you got a really incredible no-name actor, this also could have been, like, their breakout role.
True.
Because if you don't know somebody and they play this role...
That's true. You know them then.
Yeah. Again, I'm just being selfish. Like, you could have catapulted someone new into being a horror mainstay.
Yeah, that's...
This could have been a good stepping stone, but you handed it to Channing Tatum, I guess is where I'm coming from.
We kind of get into this like cycle of like, oh, is our movies just filled with the same 10 people?
Yeah.
Which I also get. So I can see both perspectives from that.
So on this dinner scene, everything gets revealed now, basically. It feels very casual, the way they explicitly reveal Sarah's boyfriend is cranking this wine bottle, and we do this slow-mo into his necklace, hitting his chest with the sound playing, and you go, oh, fuck.
Yeah.
That was his necklace.
Yeah.
And then here is your... trigger warning. 1 hour and 6 minutes in, we get everything explicitly shown to us.
Yeah.
Sarah is bent over a table, bound, gagged. Homeboy is behind her.
Yes.
One of the women is like being wrestled by someone. This is where... So it's Slater that is wrestling with the Crypto King here.
Oh!
Yes.
Really?
They're out in the grass together. And then this was the scene where I went, oh, he was considered one of the girls, kind of.
I missed that part. I think I was just so horrified by because it's like this, there was a couple different shots, right? Or maybe it was this one, where it's like this panorama of this like rape chaos.
Yes.
And
I shouldn't laugh, but that's like the perfect description of it.
It's so like, oh my God, it's going to follow me into my nightmares, really. Because it was so like shot in such a like a almost dreamlike way. Because you have all these like people running around in white at night, and then just like this horrendous violence happening. Yeah. And like going through my day today, that has popped up in my head, and it's just like, so I have a lot of mixed feelings about this movie, but I will say that it definitely sticks with you.
Yeah. After the first watch, you're going to sit with it for the next couple of weeks.
It's definitely, it just keeps coming back to it. So I missed that part. Yeah. Because I was so just like shocked by everything that was happening.
They start with Sarah bent over the table. Like they just...
Bam, right?
Throw it at you. Yeah. So you're kind of just in like, oh my God.
Yeah. And yes.
And then we get that panorama, and then we're back at dinner.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Which is, so it's, again, it's like this back and forth, these flashbacks that are coming in.
I think the actress for Sarah was so good in this. So we're back at dinner. And Slater asks Sarah if she's having a good time. Yeah. And you can tell, I think I am Sarah. Because, like, you can tell Sarah's struggling to keep up the facade. And there's this, again, it's not, nothing is said. But Frida kind of gives her those eyes, like.
Yeah. It's like, get it together.
And she goes... It's been great. But again, to your point of like, is this getting too silly?
Yeah.
Like, I cackled when she went, it's been great. And then we get like a little bit of a monologue from Sarah talking about, I think it might kind of be her way of trying to navigate this situation, say something that what kind of falls out of her is like, it's been really nice, like meeting other women and getting to know other women. And, I don't really have that. And I would love to start like an organization to like teach women how
survival skills.
Yeah. And then we get this like gross response from like Slater and like one of the men, and I feel like this happens like when women try to talk about things, and one of the men is like, oh yeah, like my sister was assaulted outside of yoga. I don't remember what he says, but it's basically like, I know a woman that has been assaulted.
Yeah, it's like the world is crazy dangerous out there, not here, out there. Yeah, my sister got mugged in front of Best Buy or something like that. Yeah.
But then, Slater's comment is saying how powerful women banding together is. And then he goes to hold Frida's hand, and
she jolts away.
And, like, this was a moment where I was like, I am very thankful that I've never been in an abusive situation, but like I can empathize for women that have gotten to a point with a partner that their touch is enough to make you recoil because you are just that terrified.
Yeah.
And again, to give Channing Tatum his props, that scene where he touches her and she jumps, he gives her this stare that is so controlling and so abusive when nothing is being said.
Yeah.
Because you can tell he's fuming underneath.
Yeah.
And then, as many women do, Frida realizes that her and Sarah really need to use their sexuality to get themselves out of this situation, arm themselves with some things to stab people with.
Yeah.
And Frida just very casually goes, I want to dance.
Yep.
And gets up and starts to dance to no music.
No.
Kind of gives Sarah the eyes of like,
help me out here.
Follow my lead.
Yeah.
Sarah gets up on the table. Frida follows, and they're up on the table. And then it's like a lot of things are being accomplished because it's like, well, now you've put yourself up on the table. You are keeping... everyone's eyes are on you, and you've also successfully moved yourself away from a potential threat. Like, there's at least a little bit of distance between you and the men. Yeah. So, it just...
the other women kind of join, too, because their venom still hasn't kicked in yet.
Yeah.
And then they all just kind of are dancing, and then Sarah grabs the corkscrew.
Yeah.
Because they're all because eventually they all come off the table and the music starts. And they're all, what was the song that was playing? It was kind of fucked up, actually.
Oh, God, I don't know.
I can't remember, but I just remember, again, with the soundtrack choices.
Yeah.
Like, it was very... a well done song. I wish I could remember. I wish I had made a note of it. And they're all dancing, and then I think the venom starts kicking in.
Yeah, so like you said, she gets the corkscrew, she hides it someplace to go get it later. And then we actually get a cut shot to the assistant in a bungalow, and she kind of like drops all of her Skittles. So it's like, we know the venom is starting to hit because the assistant should be on the same timeline as the other two girls.
Yes.
So we get her, and then we're back
at dinner.
Yeah, back at dinner. And one of the girls' nose starts to bleed that has wandered off and was pouring herself a glass of water, and you hear the water is spilling and her nose is bleeding.
Yes.
So you're like, okay, she's with us.
Yes. Also, it's just like that shot of like, I think her like remembering shot was really kind of powerful because like she had like the single tear rolling. I just really like the cinematography of that, and like the slow kind of like shift from like horror, from like blankness to horror to just like pure fucking fury.
Yeah,
was awesome.
Yeah,
because this is the character Carmilla, I think before at dinner in the similar scene, like after Sarah, or maybe before Sarah's little speech and stuff, was talking about how she's like, I'd do anything for you guys. Like if we go back, like just give me the Addy, and I will be there, and I will kick some ass for you and stuff. Yeah. So we get a little, like, a slight taste of like her personality there. And then like, yeah, when that venom kicks in, it's just like, it was a really good touch, because I was just like, I was looking at that and I was like, that's like a woman's rage, and I really appreciate it.
Yeah. So we see her, and then we get this isolated interaction between Frida and Slater off on their own, which is so uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I didn't even make a note of like what exactly was being said, but you're just like, oh, this is getting so bad for Frida. And then it's broken up by a scream. Mm-hmm. And then we pan back around, and the girl that was pouring the water now has an ice pick.
Yes.
And feminine rage be unleashed is basically where we are for the rest of this movie.
And it's great. It's it's a good catharsis, because like there's just so much like it does a really good job of like building this dread, and then just like punching you in the face with this actual depiction of like what has been going on, and this realization that this has been going on for days and days and days. And then just, yes, very good gore kill scenes of just these women fucking murking these assholes.
Well, it's such a beautiful change in tone, because the men are truly scared.
Yeah.
And the women are like, come here, like, I'm gonna fucking kill you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think, excellent. Again, to my comment earlier, I think from this point forward, this is where you have to make that decision. Do I want to keep this in thriller, or do I want to make this horrifying and make some of these kills a lot worse than what they were in this? I still think they were very bloody, very good.
Yeah.
They matched the movie. Like, they fit with how the movie was written, but I think for me, I'm like, if I could just, like, pick this and put it in the horror genre, like, we could have made this a lot bloodier and nastier.
You're right. And that would have been a lot better for me. Like, horrify me now with, like, cleanse me of the horror of, like, having to see these women be raped.
Yeah.
With, like, the horror of, like, these men being fucking skinned or something.
I'll use the example of the chessboard. It's not really a kill because he ends up surviving it, but like the guy that gets his head bashed in with the chessboard, you could have made that Love Lies Bleeding-esque, where you could have truly bashed his head in to where it's just
pulp.
Yeah, exactly. And that, I think that's the difference of our discussion of like, is this thriller? Is this horror? I think.
And like, even with like, I mean, I wouldn't have been mad if it took like a substance, like the substance route, and like just went completely fucking crazy.
Yeah.
Like rivers of blood.
Yeah.
Like I would have appreciated that a lot, actually. I think
a lot of women out there would have appreciated that.
Yeah. And that honestly, I hadn't thought about that until just now, but I think I would have appreciated that more. But you're right, it does fit kind of where it is, where it's straddling this line between like thriller, like blockbuster thriller, and then like horror.
Yeah. So then we get this, I'll just call it a rage scene, where men are being stabbed and head is bashed in and everyone is being violently injured, and the corkscrew through the hand, and Frida takes off running.
Yes.
And is chased by the special ops bodyguard that we've seen all movie.
Who's just has been lurking in the background the whole time.
We know he has a gun. We know he's there. He hasn't really done anything up to now.
Has been there through all of the night and the nights and stuff. Yeah.
And I made a note of this. This kind of made me mad. I think Frida, for all of her questionable decisions, I think in piecing this together, she's been good, right? Mm-hmm. She's out in the forest. She runs, hides, so homeboy runs past her. Then she's trying to crawl to get away from him. Mm-hmm. Hand on a twig. If I know that I am being chased by someone in the special ops, the moment I step on the twig, I am hightailing it or hiding somewhere. I am not freezing.
Looking at the twig. Well, again, you're a tactician. So, not everybody has those instincts, fight, flight, freeze. Those are things.
I just...
It's funny because my roommate was watching this part with me, and she out loud was like, "Oh my God," when she's like, "You idiot." And I was like, and it was so the roommate situation was so funny because I asked if she wanted to watch this movie with me, and she's like, "No." And I was like, "Okay." And then she comes out the last 10 minutes of the movie.
Oh no.
And like sits down next to me and is watching it with me, and I'm like having to narrate like what had happened and how we got here because she's like, "What's going on?" And I'm like, "You didn't watch the rest of the movie." So then we watched up to the part. Then I had to restart it, and then she watched up to the point where it was Frida and Sarah remembering together kind of thing, and then I was like, and that's where we stopped. Yeah. But so the last 10 minutes she was like, "Oh my God," so she steps on the twig. Guy comes, and then
Sarah saves her.
Sarah
shows up behind homeboy, bashes his head in, I think, with a rock.
Bashes his head in.
Yeah.
Like, I think we get some pretty good bashing there, which I appreciated.
Again, though, it's in that kill scene what we're seeing is Sarah, whereas if we're going the horror route, I am seeing brains on the floor, stone impact head.
Brains on the rock, even.
Yeah.
Like, give me something.
But, and then we cut to Slater. Slater and the boys that are still alive are now in the bungalow, and he has one of the women in the bungalow. I forget her name. I'm sorry, but
Camilla.
she is about to die, and he just steps on her neck until she ceases to exist.
Yeah,
and I think again, the creepiness in this kill definitely lands because we are just focused on his face, and it is so calm, and we get like a little bit of like his neck tensing, and I'm just like, and then they zoom out and you see like, oh, he just stepped on her neck until she died.
Yeah. I didn't like that because I like Camilla at the end there, and I wish she deserved better. I mean, they all deserve better, obviously, but that was definitely kind of really highlighted his sociopathic, psychotic-ness.
I'm feeling American Psycho vibes from Mr. Slater. Like I'm like we're going down that route.
Yeah. I can see the alignment there.
Yeah. And then we cut to we're in a different bungalow with Frida, and the assistant attacks Frida.
Yes.
And is basically like, I didn't want to remember. And I think I didn't note it exactly, but I think this line is very poignant because she's basically like, I didn't want to remember because the men are always going to do what they want to do.
Yeah.
Basically trying to say it was easier when I forgot because if I remember or not, or no matter what I do, these men are going to do what they fucking want to do.
Yeah.
And I was like, ugh.
And I think I also had mixed feeling about the inclusion of her character, but I think that it makes sense because in all of these, you have all these... There's a lot of, allusion to this, to, the modern Hollywood epidemic of sex pests and all the people who let the sex pests be awful, right? And, there's a lot of, men who enable that, too, but there's also a lot of women who enable it, and a lot of women who look the other way.
Yeah.
Or, just enable it.
Yeah.
Or...
Stay out of the way.
And have no comment about it, right? So I always think it reminds me back with Black Christmas too of that. So I think that
it's an honest depiction.
It is
Those
an honest
women
depiction.
exist.
Yeah, they do exist, and I do appreciate, I think, that including that role.
Yeah,
because I think it is important to if you're taking this kind of metaphor, I guess, for how it is. It's good to do kind of an honest depiction of that.
Yes, yeah. And then Frida stabs her because they're in the bungalow where she has the knife. And then the assistant tries to say, "Help me." And then I like the quirky one line from Frida.
Yeah.
"Bitch, I tried."
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and I mean, we are steamrolling through this now.
Yeah.
Boom, we cut. We're in the woods. Slater sent... What is the boy that was paired with Sarah that we assumed was the boyfriend?
The chef
Chef man.
Chef man.
Slater sent chef man back out to try to find the girls to bring them back, basically. So he's out. They're in the woods. Sarah shoots him.
Yeah. Bam.
She's like, I fucking don't have the time. Fuck you.
Yeah. Good for her.
Yeah.
Honestly.
And then this is where we're back inside the bungalow with Slater, Gay Boy Crypto King, and then the guy that got his head bashed in.
Yes.
And this is where we kind of start to see Slater's true colors as he starts to really speak through some stuff. Mm-hmm. And this is where he starts on the rant to the guy about how there's a special place in hell for people who do nothing. You're a do nothing is what he tries to say.
Yeah.
Did you want to...
Well, yeah, because I think that you could have cut him out of the story entirely and it wouldn't have made a difference, I think.
Yeah.
And I just think that because of that, they should have either cut him or they should have done more.
Yeah.
They should have done more with him.
Yeah.
And put him on the, like, actually aligned him with the other women.
Yeah.
Or just not had that in, because I think that if you're trying to say something about how, like, men can be victims too, say it.
Yeah.
Don't just kind of, like, imply it and then delete it, you know? So I just kind of wish that they had done a little bit more with him. I think that there was, like, potential there to be like, yeah, like, I'm also a victim.
I would also like to know Zoe Kravitz, if you're watching this on YouTube, I would like to explicitly know, was, like, I don't really fully comprehend the angle in which they were trying to write that character in. Like, was it trying to get at men can be sexually abused too? Mm-hmm. Or kind of to your point about the
assistant.
The assistant, is he being written in as a man that is allowing this to happen but not participating in it?
Yeah.
Like that friend that hangs out in that circle of men who have raped people, roofied people, whatever. They don't do it.
Yeah, but they still are in the peripheral, right? Or in the circle. Yeah. So I just think it was like kind of like a non-decision what they did with him.
Yeah.
And I didn't like it. And it was like so, and yeah, it was like so subtle that it, like my first watch through, I totally missed that he was like wrestling with Slater.
Yeah.
And it still is like this kind of this question mark. It was like, was he just being beaten up because like Slater is like a sadist, or like was he also being assaulted?
Yeah.
Like, please give me those answers.
Well, and it's like it's also, I think if we were going the route of we need the male friend that is complicit in this and not standing up, I think it would have been better to make him a big, bulky, broody guy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Making
not
him
a little twink, you know?
Yeah, making him a feminine little twink. You're now going, well, is he being sexually abused too? Like, what is this?
Yeah, what is this? And that's, I just, I didn't like that was left as a question of, like, what is this?
So,
but yeah, he doesn't, and again, he doesn't even last long because, like, he goes, no. So he's telling him he's a do-nothing.
Yeah.
And then we hear Sarah and Frida, they're at the doors.
Yes.
Kind of, like, rallying him up. And,
so before we actually get to the door, we get a moment where Frida finds her Polaroid of her with long hair and the red rabbits on her nails.
Yeah. I forgot about that.
Where, again, we've had these breadcrumbs, and now we're finally being handed, this is where Red Rabbit comes in.
Yes.
And then we get the ultimate final girl moment, in my opinion. Beyonce kicks in as our background music, and Frida and Sarah are headed to the bungalow where the boys are at.
Yeah.
And just a funny little background. Kind of devastated we don't have a director's commentary for this movie, but
that would be nice.
I watched a video somewhere down the line where they got the Beyonce audio into this, where apparently when filming, the actresses for Frida and Sarah were like, hey, can you like put on some music, like a vibe for this shot? and they just happened to put on Beyonce.
Oh my gosh.
And they were like, oh my God, we have
to
do this. And Zoe's like, we don't have the fucking budget to get Beyonce.
Yeah.
And I guess she called Beyonce up and was like, hey, I'm just going to shoot my shot. And Beyonce was like, yeah, you can have it.
That's
like,
crazy.
Incredible.
What it's like to be Zoe Kravitz.
Well, yeah, I'm sure that helped along the way.
Yeah.
But, so then they show up at the door.
Yes, show up at the door. And then Crypto Boy opens the door. Sarah shoots him in the head immediately. He's dead.
Yeah, immediately. And Slater was like, I wouldn't open that. I wouldn't open that. And it's such this like tempo of like, he swings the door open, boom, bullet straight to the head. He's down. Slater kind of like scrambles to drag him back, which I'm like, I don't think Slater would have dragged his body back. He would have just slammed the door.
Yeah, just left it. Or maybe his body was in the way.
The door
but
I don't know. So then Frida's there with a knife and like
waving around. She gets her arm caught in the door.
Yeah.
Amateur move.
Yeah.
Which, I would expect you to say that since you're the tactician. And it's our tagline.
Yeah. It's simple tactics. Don't do that.
Oh my God. And then like Frida gets dragged in. He closes the door, locks Sarah out. Sarah has the gun and she's like shooting at the lock and stuff. But then we get, this moment between Slater and Frida. And
I didn't take specific notes here. He's just being awful and gets her tied up, basically.
Yeah. And this, so is the apology scene, is that after Sarah's in there?
So basically once he gets in and he gets her tied up, she has her flashback.
Oh.
Or her remembering, however we want to, to the first time she was here.
The first time, because she has,
she's running away, and we find out, basically, the scar on her head is from running away from Slater, and we get this, like, kind of beautiful scene of, like, it's this, almost like a dance, where she is clearly about to fall. He has her by, like, the sash. Yeah, the sash on her dress, and then just lets her go, so she cracks her head against a rock, and that's where we get that scar.
Yeah. She's like concussed, and she's like looking around, and then we see the lizard!
And I was like, oh, our first shot. And again, I love that. It's
I
a
love
cool
it.
little touch.
I do like it when movies do that a lot, actually.
Yeah, and then we see Slater basically like hog ties her, and then
and then we get another flash.
Well, no, before we flash, he goes, "Are you having a good time?" As she's hogtied, like, whoa! And then we get another flash where we find out Frida bit Homeboy's pinky off.
Yeah, Christian Slater, the character who was played by Christian Slater, got his whole ass pinky bit off by Frida, which rocks.
And
love
then
that.
This is where we get this monologue from Slater talking about forgiveness.
Yeah, forgetting and forgiveness, and
goes on this rant about, I'm sorry, and this is a good scene on his part, like from an acting perspective, where he just goes, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, and then just starts like screaming it from this perspective of like, all men have to do is say I'm sorry over and over and over again, and then eventually it gets forgotten about, and they get to move on with their life.
Well, and then so it goes on for way longer than I expected, to the point where it was like actually deeply uncomfortable. He's just screaming, I'm sorry, again and again. And you know, when you say a word like again and again and again, it stops being a word. It's just like a collection of sounds. Yeah. And I was like, I loved that, actually. I love that, because it said exactly what he was saying. That it's like, he said it so many times, it doesn't have any meaning, but it never did in the first place. Yeah. And so I'm watching this, my roommate is watching this, and she's just like laughing uncomfortably, and then she goes quiet as he's screaming because it gets so uncomfortable. Yeah. And then later, after the movie ends, she like turns to me and she's like, can we talk about the I'm sorry thing? And she goes, it's just a nonsensical man thing to think that I'm sorry means that they deserve forgiveness. Yeah. And I was like, direct quote, that, because that's so true. It's so true. You know, that's such a
but he even makes, so he does that screaming I'm sorry, and then he even says there's no real forgiveness, just forgetting. Yeah. It's true.
Is it? I don't know. Do we want to go down that rabbit hole of like the philosophy of like forgiveness and forgetting? Because I don't know.
I just think in our society,
Yeah, like the grander scheme of things.
that's where we're at.
Yeah. Oh no, that makes sense. Which again makes me think of like Armie Hammer, who like
Can
assumed.
you tell the people about this, because we've referenced it twice? Because we've had a discussion via text message about this, because I randomly stumbled upon it, and I think were you already familiar with it or no?
Oh yeah, I knew about it immediately.
Well, obviously, because it's cannibalism, but I stumbled upon it, and I was like, Jesus Christ. So, just for the viewers at home.
Armie Hammer is like super rich, comes from like literally the Arm & Hammer family or something. So he's very rich. Also
I just know he's a very famous actor.
And a very famous actor, right? And he's unfortunately...
He was in The Social Network, right?
Yeah, he was in The Social Network. He was in Call Me By Your Name, which is one of my favorite movies.
Unfortunate.
Very. Anyway, this whole thing came out that he is like, has all these like crazy rapey cannibal fantasies, and I can't remember if like actual accusations came out against him for him assaulting people, or if he was just again like this abusive power thing, like this unworthy like conduct or something, and then he disappeared, I think literally to an island for a while, and then came back, is now on podcast talking about his freaky cannibal fantasies like it's okay. So again, it's like, where did the outrage go? We were all ready to just throw him in a hole, and now he is emboldened enough to just come out and start talking about this shit on podcasts. That's insane.
Well, and I think this is like the big key to this movie, right? Is like this whole concept of no forgiveness, we're all just forgetting, is such a comment on our society, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, that makes sense.
So he's screaming whatever. I did find it very interesting that Slater very casually discusses how his sister like won't forgive or won't forget, and brings up how Slater's just playing tennis with someone and how she can't believe that after what he did to us as kids.
So and he's like, what did he do? Because he doesn't remember.
So are we like trying to sprinkle in they have been sexually assaulted as kids and he has repressed that memory and that has made him the way that he is? That's
what I was getting to.
It was all of about 10 seconds. So I'm like, again, why did you put that in there if you're not going to take it and go somewhere with it?
Yeah, exactly. No, that's a really good point. Because they did sprinkle that in and I was like, oh, is this the implication? Because what else was I watching? I was watching something and it was like, oh, why are the, it's like, the bad, I get it. Hurt people, right? That's a thing. Men do get abused. Yeah. And then some, not all, go on to abuse other people, right? That happens. But again, commit to it. Commit to this piece of the story that you're trying to tell. Yeah. Or don't use it. Don't put it in as some kind of justification. We don't need a last moment attempt to sympathize with this bastard. Yeah. Don't do that.
Yes.
I think it's gross and not necessarily lazy, but just not like, it's like, what is it trying to do?
Yeah. And so all through this conversation, Frida has had a piece of glass and is trying to cut through the ties in her hand or around her wrist. Finally gets through it. All the while, Sarah interrupts this interaction between Slater and Frida by trying to get into the house.
Yes.
And then we get a cut scene of Slater hauling ass after Sarah into the woods, grabs her, drags her back into the bungalow.
Yes.
So now we've got Frida, Sarah, Slater, and then homeboy on the couch still that has his face bashed in and is somehow still alive. Yeah. Anyway, so I think this is such an epic ending in my opinion, because Slater is standing over Sarah, getting ready to slit her throat.
Takes a hit of his vape.
Takes a hit of his vape, and the cinematography of this is so good because you see him take the hit of the vape, and then we come down, even with Sarah, who's about to get her throat slit, and you can see the smoke, the vape smoke coming down, and I'm like, this. and I think this is where I get mad that, like, I wish this was, like, a true, full-blown horror movie. And maybe I can write it into something that I do. But, like, to have a killer just smoking a vape, murdering people is, like, so modern to me.
It's so modern.
It would be, like, it would be Freddy.
Yeah.
Creeping into your nightmares with his vape. Like, it's just, I think it's perfect. But anyway,
it is perfect.
He hits this vape, and it's laced with something.
It sure is. It's laced with the perfume.
Yeah.
And he hits it, and then he's like, and then he kind of stops.
He's coughing and sputtering, and then stops and starts to kind of freak out.
Yeah, he's like, what happened to your face? To the guy with his smashed face. What happened to Carmilla? Like, freaking out, like, what's going on?
Yeah.
And then takes another hit of his vape and goes through the same kind of sequence.
Yeah.
Which was like, yeah, it was a good scene. I was like, because it clicks, it all clicks into place. And
I love it. And he starts tripping around. And as he's tripping, he's knocking over candles. Mm-hmm. So now the bungalow's on fire. And we kind of just then cut, and we're back on Frida's face. She's clearly dragging something, which my assumption was it's Sarah.
Yeah, I assume that too.
And then all of a sudden, we're sitting there, and we see Frida, we see Sarah, and again, we have, like, kind of a silly moment, because, like, Sarah has a burnt cigarette, like a crooked cigarette, where she's like, do you have a lighter or whatever?
Yeah.
And then at some point in that interaction between them, Sarah's like, are you sure about this? Mm-hmm. And then we zoom out on them, and Frida has dragged Slater out of the flames.
Yeah. I put in all caps, why did she save him?
And then we find out
why.
They're back at dinner in a similar setting to the beginning. So it's some sort of gala.
Yeah.
It's identical. The white room, the tables, whatever. And Slater is clearly having memory issues, because he's kind of stammering, and
he's talking to Rich, and he's like, that thing that we talked about. And he's like, yeah, the thing.
Yeah. Which, like, I think we've all, like, fucking as a barista, people are like, yeah, da-da-da. And I'm like, yeah, don't have a clue what your name is or what you're fucking talking about. So it's that moment of, like, playing along.
Yeah.
And Frida hands him his vape juice.
Yes.
It's, like, very casual, like, hands him his vape juice. And then we get this moment where they're like, and now the CEO of King Tech, Miss Frida King.
Yeah.
And she is now taking over the company. He's, like, stumbling, trying to get his vape together.
And she's got a big, pretty ring. And she's like, so she just took him for all he's worth. And I'm like,
and the room applauds, and she just casually drinks her champagne.
Yeah. And then that's
the ending.
That's the end. How do you feel about the end?
I love it. I think it's hilarious where, like, if you read some shit online, people are
mad about it.
Yeah. I'm like, fuck you. Fuck you. Good on her.
Yeah, I agree. I agree, because I was like, at first I was frustrated when it was like, oh, she pulled him out of the fire and stuff, and, like, let him burn. But, like, I think it's actually better this way. And
I think it's actually a really good example. Like, this film class that I'm in, people have obviously caught on that I'm obsessed with horror, so they'll, like, talk to me or whatever. And I just got in a conversation about, like, character arc, and how, like, in horror, when things happen, do you see the recovery of people, or, like, the after effect? And it's like, I think so often we end with, it would be the scene of, like, Sarah and Frida, and they survived, and that's their arc and whatnot. But it's like, no, Frida took this and fucking made a life for herself out of it.
Which is, she doesn't live in a shitty little apartment anymore with a super who won't fix the black mold in their house. And, like, so, yeah.
My question is, can I get a horror sequel where Frida and her girls are now taking men out to this island, drugging them, and having a heyday?
Or maybe just killing them. I think.
Well, yeah, yes, that's what I meant. I did. Yeah. We don't need to go the sexual assault route. I'm not saying men deserve that,
like,
but
just hunting them in the woods, like most rich people would do. That'd be fun.
Yeah. So I think you could go with that.
I think that would be a good like horror, like an actual like a driven horror sequel.
So I really enjoyed this. I mean, I think again it was interesting to do a rewatch of it because after my initial watch in theaters, I was like, this is fucking amazing. And then this second watch, I was like, oh well, this is like actually kind of obvious.
Yeah.
But I think it would be a good one to try to sit down and, like, if I could get my hands on the script and, like, read the script as I'm watching, I think it would be a good lesson for me as, like, a novice writer to learn how to set breadcrumbs that... Because, like, I still think it kind of had to do with her tempo because it was, like, every time we got a breadcrumb, she interrupted it.
Yeah.
So you couldn't really focus on it and take it somewhere. But what did you think overall?
I have mixed feelings about it. I think that's kind of all, because there were parts of it that I like really liked. There were parts where it was losing me. The whole mechanic of it, because like when they were talking about the mechanics of like the perfume, snake venom.
Yeah.
This is like literally telling us how it is happening.
Yeah.
I feel like there was a better way to do that without this kind of like absurdity, because I don't think that it was trying to be an absurd movie.
Yeah.
I think it was trying to be this like depiction of this thing that happens, right? And but it could have been something where like, yeah, you've been taking drugs with them every single night. Like there are ways to talk about forgetting and trauma and stuff without this magic snake juice to make it happen, you know? So I get that it was being used as like a plot device, right? To get to lead us along this path of like forgetting and remembering and the horror of remembering and stuff. But I don't think that it needed to be done in the way that it does, in the way that it was done. That just was like a sticking point for me.
That's fair.
But I did, you know, once I kind of suspended my disbelief for that, I was like, okay, yeah, this is what it's doing is genuinely horrifying.
Yeah.
And good. So it's a mixed bag for me.
That's fair.
There are parts that I could appreciate and parts that I think I could have been done better and parts I could have done without entirely.
Yeah. And I will say, I think that's how she made it into the podcast, because I think the topic and the concept in this movie is truly horrifying.
Yeah, absolutely.
Whereas it's labeled a thriller, I think just because of the nature of how it's written and what we see, it can be tossed into that thriller category.
Yeah.
But I think it is truly horrific.
Yeah, it is truly horrific. And then I get in this this loop of being non-committal on whether or not like I'm like okay with depicting an actual assault on screen, right? Because it's like it could have been you could have had almost, I think, the same effect for the storytelling, maybe not the punch.
Yeah.
Without the panorama.
Yeah.
And like I get into this loop of like depicting violence against women as a punch, right?
Yeah.
As like a oh my God, I'm seeing this is happening, a shock factor.
Yeah.
Right? When it's not always necessary, but also, you know, it is stuff. So, but also like it is stuff that happens.
Yeah.
I don't, and I'm not gonna be like, oh well, no one should ever depict any of this, because it offends me. And that's not what I'm saying.
It's just that question of, is it necessary?
Is it necessary?
And again,
could she have had the same effect and the same kind of like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Without having shown it.
Well, and I mean, again, that's where my obsession with Run, Sweetheart, Run comes.
Exactly.
Is because that movie is still horrifying, but you don't see the assault.
Yeah.
So I think there are avenues in cinematography to accomplish that 100%.
Yeah, I agree. So, you know, mixed feelings, but definitely left an impact.
Yeah.
And I can always respect a piece that that strikes me because, you know, there's some things that I'm just going to easily forget and never watch again.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'll rewatch this, but I'm definitely not going to forget it.
Yeah.
So.
You're welcome for that.
Yeah, thank you.
What do you want to yap about this week? Do you have anything you want to yap about this week?
I don't really have some yapping I got to do this week. I'm just busy and going and going and going. I don't have like a weekend to myself until like March.
Yeah.
I was going to get a new tattoo, and then it got pushed to March.
Yeah.
So
March will be a good month for you, though.
Yeah, it will be. So yeah, not much to yap about on my part. What are you yapping about?
I am yapping about my success of like creating this wonderful little cocoon of like books around myself. Mm-hmm. I think I'm successfully disassociating from the world right now, and I have made my own little like lesbian sapphic vampire cocoon that I'm sitting in.
Wonderful.
I'm about to finish The Kingdom of Immortal Lovers, my little smutty books that I've been reading, and I just started An Education in Malice, the audiobook.
Oh, was it good?
Oh my God. So good. And I was having the conversation. So as I put in the Discord, I have developed an addiction to audiobooks. Mm-hmm. I have listened to so many of them this month. I love them. I think it fits my lifestyle a little bit better because I think I do get antsy sitting and reading. I love that. I will do that on occasion, but I think I just can't sustain it for as long as I'd like to.
Yeah.
So I think audiobooks are really like, I'm vibing with it right now.
Nice.
But I think I am going to run into the same problem with audiobooks that I do with streaming. Because like I'm listening to An Education in Malice and I'm like, I need to own a hardcover special edition of this book.
Yeah.
I have to have this.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Like, you know, you could call it trophies.
Yeah.
Right? Like you finish the audiobook, you really love it, you go and you buy the physical copy. It's your trophy.
Yeah.
And there's people who come to the store who do that all the time. It's just like, I've read I listened to this on audiobook, or I read it on Kindle, and I was like, I just had to have a physical copy. That's totally
and
valid.
that's where I'm at. Like An Education in Malice, I can already tell I'm gonna have to purchase it. It'll be a discussion we have this week at work for somebody to find it for me, and I'm gonna have to order the Kingdom of Immortal Lovers books because 2 and 3 there are just so many one-liners. I'm just obsessed with this Octavia character. I think she is me. I think she's misunderstood. I love her. I think it's, dare I say, it is one of the best character arcs I have read in a book in a really fucking long time.
Oh, that's great. I love it when a book will suck you in.
Yeah,
it's
so
fun.
I am like so very deep into this little cocoon with all of the joy in the world, and I'm very happy about it, and I hope I can sustain it for as long as possible.
Good. I hope so too. I think that there's a lot of power in reading. I'm reading the third book in this series. They're like he's a queer detective in the 50s doing queer detective things.
I think you were telling me about these.
Yeah, they're really good. I'm almost done with the third one, and this one is kind of focused around books. Like there's this this whole situation where one of his friends is lost this list that had all of these queer people who were buying queer books. Again, this is in the 50s.
Yeah.
So it's illegal. It's peddling smut, blah, blah, blah. And then there's like this really interesting, like, just monologue, essentially, of just like the importance of books, especially to queer people.
Yeah.
Especially in that time where people didn't have like a community, they didn't know other queer people, and like being able to obtain a book and read and see that like this different perspective of like that other people are like this too, and the importance of that. And I think it's just a really timely, like, you know, I picked it up as like a little detective story.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow, this is really timely and relevant.
I was going to say, it's scary to hear you talk about a story based in the 1950s and be like, this is what's going on, and it was so important back then. And I'm like, I actually feel like that is very important right now as well.
Yeah.
And that is why I'm reading the items that I'm choosing to read. Like, and it's so funny. And I proved that I am very much making like a cocoon for myself, because I did try to do that Camp Damascus book about gay conversion camps. Mm-hmm. And like the audiobook kind of lost me, because I realized now is probably not the time for me to listen to the church using demons to punish gay children in a conversion camp. I was like, this is actually not the topic that I want to listen to, so it lost me a little bit.
Yeah,
but
we're doing escapism right now.
Yeah,
and that's okay.
I was like, where are my lesbian vampires? I need to go back to an education in Malice.
Yeah. Did you read Dowry of Blood yet?
Yes. So
yes? Oh, you finished it.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Oh, and in this conversation, I did just want to give you a shout out. Like, I feel like I was like trying to come to terms with like, I think for my friends, I have always played that role of like, you should read this, you should watch this movie or watch this show.
Yeah.
And like to have you, I think you just know what I enjoy. So like I was talking about a Dowry of Blood and you were like, oh, they've also written An Education in Malice. And I was like, oh, I'll add it to my list. And I'm like, fucking obsessed with it.
There you go. Go me. I haven't even read An Education in Malice.
You guys get yourself a bookseller friend. Like, they just will change your life.
Book wizard, book dealer.
Yeah.
That's what they call me. Yeah. Well, good. I'm glad you're getting
very
some
happy.
good escapism.
We have a podcast update. Moving forward, we are gonna stick to topics a little bit, and we have shifted. I think up to now we've kind of been trying to do like pairs of movies that like vibe with one another.
Yeah.
But we have now decided to do blocks of 3 and of certain topics. And up next is monsters.
Monsters.
So your next 3 are kind of be monster based, still created by women. Next up is Your Monster.
Your Monster.
Which I haven't seen.
I have not seen either.
I always get so nervous to do one on the pod that I haven't seen because I'm like, if I fucking hate this, I have to talk about it for like an hour to 2 hours.
Sometimes you gotta be a hater though, and it's fine. This is tagged as a horror romance, which is great because I think this is coming out like on February 17th, like right after Valentine's Day. So I like the relevance.
Yeah.
So I'm excited about this because I do love, it's like a kind of a, I don't know, a Frankenstein-y take, maybe.
I think it's supposed to be a little bit of a Beauty and the Beast reimagining. It's got my girl Melissa Barrera in it, who I fucking love. So I have to assume I'm gonna love it. Okay. We'll kind of be devastated if I don't, but
oh yeah, okay. Yeah,
I kind of think it might give me a little bit of a Bones and All moment where I'm like, this was too much romance and not enough horror, but we'll see.
We'll see.
Yeah.
You know, I like the meshing. It's fun.
But like Gail said, it's a little bit of a Valentine's Day vibe.
Yeah. It'll be fun. Any other updates? I don't think so. No. I think we're doing Your Monster. And yeah.
Hopefully it'll be on time. We're trying our best, but
we are.
You know,
the world's crazy right now.
Yeah. But I hope you enjoyed this in 4K. I hope it turns out as well as I want it to. We're trying to upgrade, you guys. We're getting there. We're trying to move up the ladder, but we're also still in the basement, so we can only do so much.
It's fine. I love your basement.
Yeah. I look forward to these times. Again, it's just us yapping, and if people want to listen to us, I just love that even more.
I love yapping.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's enough yapping for tonight.
Yeah. All right, guys. We'll see you next time.
Thanks. Stay safe out there.
Please, 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 please. We love you. Goodbye.
Bye.
Watch out for those weirdos.
We are the weirdos, mister.